You allege too that Nicole Murphy had relations with your ex-husband. Were you two friends?
Birthday parties. I've been to her house. She was at my bachelorette party. But you know what? At that time, my mother told me then. She said, but you got to watch that one there. And I was like, who? I said, the one dancing. She said, yes, that's Eddie Murphy's wife. She said, you got to watch that one.
Current wife at the time or ex at the time?
I want to say I think she was still married. They were still married. And I was like, no. And so, and your mom tell you something about new school, you feel like you old school, And she was right. I don't want to stress you out by trying to keep up with my lifestyle that I already have and am accustomed to. Why? Because if I'm going to these restaurants just for lunch meetings and it takes you your whole check to take me there, I don't want to stress you out. You cannot hang.
So all this noise about Nicole Murphy being a homewrecker is starting to look like LisaRaye wasn't exactly innocent either. She just got heated when the same drama hit her door. Nicole Murphy, that behavior was messy. You sat on that couch laughing like it was nothing, but this isn't some cute little moment, it's chaos. That kind of energy lets these men move reckless, and it shows. The tension between them didn't stay quiet for long. Things blew up right after Nicole Murphy got exposed for kissing Antoine Fuqua. Yes, a married man tied to Layla Roshan. Nicole tried to clean it up fast, going on an apology run and saying it was just a one-time mistake, something that would never happen again. But the timing, the situation, and the history had people side-eyeing hard. LisaRaye was not convinced at all, and she made that loud and clear. She said she didn't believe Nicole, pointing out this wasn't the first time something like this happened. According to her, this was a pattern, not a slip-up. She even put it straight, saying she messed around with my husband. That hit different. Still, she added that everyone has done things they regret, but that doesn't erase what happened. This whole situation turned into a real spectacle because for the first time, people saw another celebrity openly calling Nicole Murphy out for how she had been moving. And this wasn't just some random person either. LisaRaye and Nicole were actually close, running in the same circles and showing up at the same events. According to LisaRaye, their friendship was solid enough that Nicole even got invited to her wedding to Michael Missick, the former prime minister of Turks and Caicos. That's how deep it seemed. But here's where it gets wild. LisaRaye felt like while all that friendship was going on, there were hidden intentions in the background. She made it clear she would have respected things more if it had been handled directly. As she put it, when you a woman, let's handle it like a woman. Let's talk face to face and get it out. She even revealed that she sat down with Nicole months after the alleged situation, trying to address everything head on. That conversation happened about 6 months later, and clearly it didn't fix anything. And from the outside looking in, it really seemed like Nicole wasn't too concerned about how LisaRaye felt. Fast forward to 2026, and there's still been no real attempt to repair that friendship. But Nicole's side of the story adds another layer. From what she's been saying, she never took LisaRaye's accusations seriously, and she had her reasons, because every time LisaRaye brings her up, she frames her as this relentless side chick going after married men, and that label clearly didn't sit right at all. But here's the part LisaRaye doesn't really bring up. There have been claims that she wasn't always on the innocent side either, and that raises a few eyebrows. Everyone knows about her marriage to Michael Missick, but not many people talk about her earlier marriage to former NFL player Tony Martin from 1992 to 1994. And during that short time, reports started circulating that she was involved with Ray Lewis, who just so happened to be Tony's friend and teammate. That detail alone had people talking. According to those claims, the situation went on longer than anyone expected, and when Tony allegedly found out, it hit him hard. There's stories saying he was deeply hurt, struggling to process what was happening between his wife and someone he trusted. That kind of situation is bound to get messy, and people still bring it up when discussing her past.
What really got attention, though, was how things seemed to continue moving forward afterward. LisaRaye has always been known for her looks, no question about that. She had attention coming from all directions, with plenty of men interested in her. But at the same time, her acting career had its biggest moments in the early 2000s, especially with her standout role as Diamond in the 1998 film The Players Club. That role made a lasting impression. As time went on and opportunities reportedly slowed down, some insiders started making claims that she became more focused on relationships that could support her lifestyle. That narrative has been debated, but it definitely added more layers to the conversation around her name, making the whole situation even more complicated. According to different reports, LisaRaye wasn't shy about what she wanted either. It's been said she would openly ask friends to connect her with wealthy men who could spoil her and keep her lifestyle looking right. That's allegedly how she ended up spending time with former NBA player Allen Iverson while he was still married. And it didn't stop there. She was also linked to Al Sharpton, with people saying the appeal had a lot to do with the influence and opportunities he could bring into her world.
Nicole Murphy, you're disgusting. You sat on that couch and you laughed. It ain't no moment, it's a mess. You wrong for that. You the type of women that let these men be evil. They gotta have some help, and women like you are that type of help.
Her name kept popping up in different places. For a short time, she was also seeing Gina Wine, but that situation didn't last long and quickly faded out. Then things got even more shocking when Bobby Brown once claimed he had been involved with her while he was already in a relationship with Whitney Houston. That claim alone had people talking non-stop. At one point, it really started to look like LisaRaye was collecting high-profile connections left and right. But out of all those rumored situations, the one with Gary Payton really stood out the most. The two never fully went public, mainly because Gary was reportedly married when things started between them. Still, once details began to leak, people realized just how messy it got. Reports claimed Gary went all out, covering her expenses, taking care of bills, and even gifting her a white Range Rover. That level of attention had everyone watching closely. Gary was reportedly all in when it came to LisaRaye, and that level of attention seemed to boost her confidence in a big way. Things escalated so much that she allegedly went directly to his wife, Monique, and told her about the situation herself. That move alone had people stunned. When it became clear that Monique wasn't walking away from her marriage, despite everything going on, the tension between the two women only got worse from there. They couldn't even be in the same space without things turning heated. And one of the wildest moments people still talk about happened at a basketball game where they both showed up. Reports claim the situation got so intense that Monique confronted LisaRaye, and it turned physical before anyone could calm it down. It reportedly took several people stepping in just to separate them. That moment added even more chaos to an already messy situation.
As time went on, Gary and Monique's marriage came to an end, and rumors quickly spread that the affair and how public it became played a major role in the breakup. People were already watching closely, and this only made the story bigger. But here's where things take another sharp turn. While Gary was reportedly risking it all for LisaRaye, she had already started seeing Michael Missick behind the scenes. Not only that, she got engaged without Gary even knowing. He reportedly found out the same way everyone else did, through the news, and was furious about how everything played out. And according to Nicole's side, this was nothing new. She has suggested that LisaRaye had always moved in a calculated way, not stepping into situations unless there was something to gain. In her view, it often came down to status and financial security, which only adds another layer to this already intense story. Now here's where things get even more complicated. After all the back and forth, the accusations, and the stories flying around, people started questioning who was really telling the full truth. Because while LisaRaye was calling Nicole out publicly, others began pointing out that both sides had messy histories that couldn't be ignored. That made the whole situation feel less like one person being wrong and more like a clash of past choices catching up all at once. Nicole, on her end, didn't just stay quiet either. Even though she didn't directly respond to every single claim, her actions made it clear she wasn't about to let her name get dragged without pushing back in her own way. She continued doing interviews, speaking on accountability, and trying to reshape how people saw her, even as critics kept bringing up her past. That contrast had people divided. Some believed she was owning up, while others felt she was avoiding the deeper issues. At the same time, the public couldn't stop comparing both women. Every old rumor, every past relationship, and every headline started resurfacing all over again. Social media especially turned it into a full debate with people picking sides and digging into details that had to be buried for years. It wasn't just about one situation anymore. It became a bigger conversation about patterns, reputation, and how both of them had moved over time.
Absolutely true.
So what happened exactly?
Just what you said. She messed around with my husband. Here's the thing. We've all done something that we regret. We've all made mistakes, and we all have to learn from that. But when you start doing it and being messy enough to do it amongst family, how does a family kiss turn into a I'm sorry apology? Like, what do you mean? You didn't know that she was married? We all know that she was married. And that was 20 years. That's history. You don't do that amongst friends. Because there's no loyalty. There's no loyalty, and you got to look up, and your person that you invited to your house and you celebrating your birthdays and going to games with, you got to look up and they're in Italy with your husband.
And with neither side fully backing down, the tension never really faded. It just kept evolving, pulling more attention and raising even more questions about what really happened behind closed doors. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any louder, the public reaction took on a life of its own. People weren't just watching anymore. They were analyzing every detail, every clip, every old interview they could find. It turned into a full breakdown of both LisaRaye and Nicole's pasts, with folks online calling out patterns, contradictions, and moments that didn't quite add up. Some were quick to defend LisaRaye, saying she was simply speaking her truth and exposing behavior that had been overlooked for too long. Others, though, weren't letting her off the hook that easily. They pointed out that calling someone out hits different when your own history has similar stories attached to it. That double standard talk started getting louder, and it shifted how people viewed the entire situation.
Nicole, meanwhile, seemed focused on maintaining her image and moving forward. She didn't jump into every argument, but her silence at certain moments had people reading between the lines. Was she avoiding the drama or just choosing not to fuel it further? Either way, it kept her name trending and the conversation alive. In the middle of all this, one thing became clear. This wasn't just a simple fallout between two former friends anymore. It had turned into a bigger story about reputation, accountability, and how quickly things can resurface when you're in the spotlight. And with both sides standing firm in their own versions of events, the drama stayed locked in, with no real resolution in sight. At this point, the situation wasn't even cooling off. It was evolving into something bigger every day. More clips, more throwback stories, and more insider claims kept popping up, keeping both LisaRaye and Nicole Murphy right in the spotlight. People weren't just reacting anymore, they were digging deep, trying to connect every rumor and every headline into one big picture. What really kept the conversation going was how neither side fully backed down. LisaRaye continued to stand firm on what she said, making it clear she wasn't about to switch up her stance or soften her words. On the other side, Nicole stayed focused on her own path, appearing unbothered in public while letting the noise build around her. That contrast had people even more invested because it felt like a silent standoff playing out in real time. And then came the debates about accountability. Some people argued that both women had made questionable choices in the past and should just own it completely. Others felt like one was being judged way harsher than the other, which only added more tension to the discussion. It became less about one incident and more about who people believed and why. By now, this wasn't just gossip. It turned into a full-blown conversation about image, past decisions, and how quickly things can spiral when personal drama goes public. And with new angles still popping up and opinions getting louder, it was clear this story wasn't fading anytime soon. By the time things reached this stage, the drama had taken on a whole new energy. It wasn't just about what happened anymore, it was about how everything looked to the public and how each woman handled the pressure. Every appearance, every comment, and even the silence in between started getting picked apart like evidence. People began watching LisaRaye closely, paying attention to how she spoke on the situation and whether her tone ever shifted. Some felt she was standing strong and refusing to back down, while others believed she was leaning too hard into calling Nicole out without fully addressing her own past. That split in opinion kept the conversation heated and non-stop. Nicole, on the other hand, kept moving like someone determined not to let the noise break her stride. She showed up, stayed composed, and didn't rush to respond to every accusation thrown her way. But that calm approach didn't stop people from questioning her motives. In fact, it made some even more curious, wondering what she was thinking behind the scenes.
When you're a woman and you're grown, let's handle it like a woman. Let's talk face to face and let's get it out. But here's the thing. I sat with her a couple of months ago, longer than a couple of months ago, about 6 months ago. And
This was after the alleged affair?
Before.
Okay.
And I said, let's talk about it because I waited a very long time for you and I to get like this right here, face to face, you know?
Okay.
And
No, show me right, Nicole, not me.
right.
Relax.
And we had a good conversation because she said to me, you know what? We're two older women that look good that's in the business. I hate this. And I do too, because I hate when we can't bridge the gap between women. You know, we should not be in that position. Right. I will say
At the center of it all, the situation became less about one fallout and more about how reputations are shaped in public. One moment can follow you for years, and when old stories resurface, they can hit even harder than before. And with both names still tied to controversy, the spotlight wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. And by now, the story had fully crossed over into something bigger than just personal drama. It became a conversation about patterns, choices, and how the past never really stays buried. Every new mention of LisaRaye or Nicole Murphy instantly brought all the old headlines rushing back, keeping the tension alive no matter how much time passed. What stood out the most was how differently they handled the spotlight. LisaRaye leaned into speaking her truth, not holding back when it came to how she felt about Nicole and everything tied to her name. That direct approach kept people listening, but it also kept the criticism coming right back at her. Meanwhile, Nicole stayed more low-key, choosing her moments carefully and avoiding getting pulled into every public back and forth. That difference in approach had people constantly comparing them. Some respected LisaRaye for being outspoken, while others felt Nicole's quieter moves showed more control. Either way, both styles kept them right in the center of attention, with opinions flying from every direction. At the end of the day, this situation turned into a reminder of how fast things can spiral when private issues go public. Once the story's out there, everyone has something to say, and the narrative can shift in seconds. And with neither side fully closing the door on the situation, the drama stayed alive, leaving people still debating who was really in the wrong. Even after all the back and forth, the tension never really settled down. If anything, it just simmered in the background, ready to flare up anytime one of their names hit the headlines again. And that's exactly what kept people hooked, because it always felt like there was more to the story that hadn't fully come out yet. At this stage, the narrative started shifting toward legacy and reputation. People weren't just focused on what happened, they were looking at the bigger picture. How would LisaRaye be remembered in all of this? How would Nicole Murphy's name hold up over time? Those questions started carrying more weight as the conversation kept going. LisaRaye continued to stand firm, making it clear she wasn't backing off her claims or changing her perspective. For her, it seemed like this was about principle and calling out behavior she didn't respect. On the flip side, Nicole stayed consistent with her approach, calm, selective, and focused on moving forward without getting pulled into every wave of criticism. That contrast kept the public divided and the story alive, because in situations like this, perception can matter just as much as the truth. And with both women holding their ground in completely different ways, the debate didn't fade. It just evolved into something even more layered and harder to ignore. And even with all that time passing, the story still refuses to fully disappear. Every now and then, it pops right back up, pulling LisaRaye and Nicole Murphy into the spotlight all over again. It's like the drama has a long memory, and people are always ready to revisit it the second something new, or even slightly related, comes up. What really keeps it alive is how unfinished everything feels. There was never a clear resolution, no real sit down where both sides put it all out there and close that chapter. That lack of closure keeps people guessing, questioning, and picking sides even years later, because when things end without answers, the speculation only grows louder. At the same time, both women have continued living their lives, building their own paths while carrying the weight of these past headlines. But no matter what new moves they make, this situation still lingers in the background, ready to be brought up at any moment. That's the reality of being in the public eye. Old stories don't just fade, they wait. And in the end, this whole situation stands as a reminder of how complicated relationships, reputation, and public perception can get when everything plays out in front of an audience. Because once a story like this takes off, it doesn't just belong to the people involved anymore. It becomes something everyone has an opinion on, and that keeps it alive. And even now, people still circle back to one big question. Was this ever really about just one situation, or was it years of unresolved tension finally spilling out? Because when you line everything up, it starts to look deeper than just one headline moment. It feels like history,
pride and personal choices all collided at once, and that's why it hits so hard in public. What makes it even more intense is how both sides seem locked into their own version of events. LisaRaye isn't backing down from what she believes happened, and Nicole isn't stepping in to fully validate those claims either. That gap between their stories keeps the mystery alive, and people keep trying to fill in the blanks themselves. At the same time, the public has turned this into a lesson of its own. Conversation shifted toward trust, loyalty, and how quickly things can fall apart when lines get crossed. And when those lines involve friendships, relationships, and reputation all mixed together, it's bound to get complicated fast. So instead of fading away, this situation turned into something people keep revisiting, analyzing from every angle. Because with strong personalities, past connections, and unanswered questions all in the mix, it created a story that just won't fully close. And as long as both names stay relevant, this chapter stays open, with people still watching and wondering what really went down behind the scenes. And by this point, the whole situation feels less like a one-time fallout and more like a long-running saga that just keeps resurfacing. Every time either LisaRaye or Nicole Murphy is mentioned, people instantly connect it back to this drama, like it never really left the conversation. That kind of staying power says a lot about how deeply it's stuck with the public.
What really stands out is how both of them moved forward, but never fully away from it. LisaRaye continued speaking her mind, never really softened her stance, making it clear she meant everything she said. Meanwhile, Nicole kept a distance from the back and forth, choosing to focus on her own path without directly engaging every time her name got pulled back into it. That contrast kept the tension alive without either of them even needing to say much. And let's be real, the public played a huge role in keeping this going. Every old clip, every past rumor, every interview moment kept getting recycled and reanalyzed. It turned into a cycle where the story kept feeding itself, growing bigger than the original situation ever was. At the end of it all, this became more than just drama. It turned into a lasting narrative about choices, perception, and how fast things can follow you when everything unfolds in public. And with both names still carrying weight, this story stays locked in people's minds, ready to spark all over again at any moment. And even after everything that's been said and done, one thing is clear. This story never really got a clean ending. There was no final moment where both sides came together, cleared the air, and shut everything down. Instead, it just faded in and out of the spotlight, leaving behind a trail of questions that people still bring up to this day. What keeps it so interesting is how both LisaRaye and Nicole Murphy stayed firm in their own lanes. Neither one fully folded, neither one completely addressed every detail, and that left space for people to keep guessing. Because when there's no clear resolution, the audience starts building their own version of the truth. And that's exactly what happened here. At the same time, this situation turned into a bigger reflection on relationships, loyalty, and how personal choices can echo for years. It showed how quickly things can shift when trust is questioned, especially when friendships and romantic connections get mixed together in messy ways. And in the end, this whole saga stands as one of those stories that just sticks, not because every detail is confirmed, but because of how layered and complicated it became over time. With both names still tied to the narrative, it remains one of those situations people keep revisiting, breaking down, and debating, because it never truly felt finished.
And even now, LisaRaye has made it clear what she expects when it comes to dating. She's openly said she prefers men who can comfortably afford her lifestyle without struggling to keep up. As she put it, I don't want to stress you out by trying to keep up with my lifestyle that I already have and accustomed to. She even explained that if she's going to high-end spots for simple lunch meetings, she doesn't want someone spending their entire check just to keep pace. That mindset says a lot about how she moves when it comes to relationships. But here's where people start raising eyebrows. After everything LisaRaye has said about Nicole, painting herself like she's above that kind of behavior, it hits different when you look back at all these past claims and stories. It makes people question how consistent that image really is. The contrast has folks talking non-stop because it doesn't fully line up for everyone. And the way people online react, it's been loud. Some take it as confidence, others see it as calculated moves, but either way, it keeps her name trending. The
The conversations keep circling back to the same question. Does she call it out in others while overlooking her own past? Now, I want to hear from you. What's your take on all of this? Do you think LisaRaye is calling out the game while still playing it her own way? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and share this with someone who needs to hear this story.